So I wanted to, so this is June 14th, and it's a meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee on Walkability. And we have Grant Wilson here, who's a member of the committee. And we're waiting for Jennifer Futterman too, but we don't really have anything to vote on today, so I don't think we necessarily need a quorum. And we have Carleen Hart here from the public. So Carleen, I wasn't sure if you had any public comments or just here to kind of listen in.
I'm here to kind of listen in to see where we're at so I can update everyone.
Sure. Okay, well, I will provide a little update and a little preview of the next Community Advisory Committee meeting. So the consultant has been hard at work in trying to comb through the data and the information that was provided through the various data collection methods that we have had over the last few months, and including the in-person sessions as well as the online surveys. And so they have tried to consolidate that information and kind of weed out the projects that are already either underway or are planned as part of a different planning process. So they're trying to do that as well. And they just sent me today the list of projects that they have identified through that process. And what I wanted to do today with the subcommittee is just kind of go through that and talk through them and get a little bit feedback on kind of how thoughts about how we might present this to the Community Advisory Committee. And I can tell you what the plan is so far. So I'll show that on the screen in a minute, but basically what the plan would be for this next Community Advisory Committee meeting, which is on the it's either the 23rd or 24th, 23rd, I think, and is to walk through that list with the group and do some prioritization. So we would provide some basic information about each one of the locations and the projects, and then the group would kind of weigh in on thoughts about prioritization of those projects. And we have them divided by district, which is how we collected a lot of that data. So so we have them separated by district, and then the idea was to create sort of a prioritization matrix along with that, so that people could identify kind of priorities based on various factors included in the kind of themes for the project. So Jennifer is joining us. Hey, Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you.
So Jennifer, I was just sharing with the group kind of where we are and what the plan was moving forward. So the group has basically provided a big list of projects, potential projects that they have compiled as a result of the feedback they've gotten. And the plan was to present the list of projects to the Community Advisory Committee on the 23rd, which is their next meeting, so that they could do some prioritization of those projects based on a variety of factors, themes that we had identified early on in the process, like mobility, sustainability, things like that. So anyway, so what I wanted to do today is just to kind of talk through that list, maybe at a high level, and get some feedback from you all about maybe ways that we could present the data or things that you might like to see if you're prioritizing it, just to get a little preview of what we might walk through with the actual participants and the CAC. So that is my plan. All right, so let me share my screen. Let's see where I can find. I'm just going to do my whole screen and we'll share. This is what I want. Okay. So this sheet that they provide, and again, they just sent this to me this afternoon. So it's really the first I'm looking through it in any great detail. And so they provided this list of projects by district, District 1, District 2, District 3, 4, 5. And again, most of this is based on a lot of the feedback that we got through the various project tools. And what they tried to do was give a little bit of information about each project. So for example, if it's a sidewalk project, it's an S. They gave it a number, tried to provide the location, and then they provided a little bit more detail about what the project might entail. So this is a pretty limited set of information. They also provided us this information graphically. So there is a map that we could pull up as we're talking through the different projects, and we could kind of help, which might help you orient people to where these things are. So that's this basic list. And the other tab here includes a lot of the details about the project. So for example, if we're in District 1, we look at the first project, and this is on North Palm Canyon Drive between Gateway and San Rafael. The project would be a new sidewalk on the east side. And they kind of thought through why this might be a good project. So comments received from the virtual walk audit. So it's important that we understand where the information came from. An online commenting tool. And so this project not only would help with pedestrian safety, but it also helps connect up where the CV link would end, where it's planned to go on that north end. So anyway, so I think that this is the kind of information, the additional information that might be helpful as people are walking through the list of projects. And then there are a couple of projects in here, just as an example, that they did not include in that list. Kind of sidewalk gap closures on McCarthy and San Rafael. I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. This was part of that. So this is all part of that one project. There were a couple of projects on here that were part of, yeah, so project in process. So for a couple of these, they didn't get a number because they're already in the works. So what I'm going to ask them to do is put those in just a separate list so people could see them, but we won't necessarily talk about them, just so that people can see that they're happening or not happening on hold. So, but anyway, so let me go back to this project list. So as you look at the information here, I wanted to get a little bit of feedback about what other sorts of things might be helpful for people to see or to provide people with so that they could kind of make a determination about priority. So as an example, one of the things I thought was that we should probably have some indicator on here for where the information came from. Like I'd love to know if it was, how many people might have provided this, like did it come through multiple sources? Is it in a plan? That kind of thing. So that's one thing that I think would be helpful, like source.
Isn't the source listed in the next tab?
It is, but I don't really necessarily want to have people going back and forth.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is, if we can, have things, the bulk of the information or the critical information in one place. So source information seems pretty important for people to know as they're kind of thinking through the process. That's my feeling. What else do you think might be helpful here?
Well, outside of the parameters of a spreadsheet, you had mentioned that there was a graphic, I assume a map,
Yep.
that represents these items.
Mhm.
This list, I think, definitely benefits from having some sort of a crosswalk to a map. I don't know if the consultant was tasked to provide such a device so you could click on something and link to, I don't know if they have a web viewer, so that you can get all this information in the same spot.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
So they do have, one thing I could not get to work was they did have a KMZ files. And so, but I could not get them to work. So I think it's just a function of maybe my computer or maybe the format that they had it in. So yeah, so I just wasn't sure why I couldn't get it to work, but yes, there is such a thing.
Well, aren't KMZ files shape files? Don't you have to have GIS to?
Yeah, so that's why I think I'm just opening them incorrectly. So I must have to be in like GIS, but I'll work that out with them to make sure that we've got something that functions for everybody.
Yeah, because typically a web viewer is essentially a GIS that is accessible to anybody who has access to the web, not just somebody who would access geographic information systems through ArcGIS or something like that.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay.
I'm just not totally clear on what the consultant is tasked with. So
well, they definitely have to have a graphic connection. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, and especially if it's interactive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just to make sure that I understood what Grant said. So if with the graphic and the map, if you clicked on that spot, then it would link basically to this information for each of those projects?
I think the way that they have it set up is that you would click on it and it would take you to a map and it would have a little icon on it that would expand to tell you some information about that project at each location.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, that would be helpful. Also just to get a visual of where those are and to have that easily linked to seeing information about it, however that's done.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's particularly beneficial because when you get a spreadsheet with, I think they're approaching 100 line items here, it becomes unwieldy to digest that.
Yeah.
So I can look at a particular district, if there are only half a dozen items for District 1, half a dozen or so for District 2, and if each committee member were focused on a single district, that might be something we could tackle that way. But this committee is not structured that way. So yeah, having that sort of graphic interface would be very helpful.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thanks for working with them on that.
Yeah.
I think Carlene posted a comment or question in the chat.
She did. Can the code descriptions be separated better? Yeah, so we can make this more readable. It's kind of does all kind of run together there. I don't think this will be the final format for this. I'm hoping not. So yeah, so we'll get them to fix that.
Yeah, and in terms of reading a spreadsheet, I'm sure they can do this too. This may speak to Carlene's comment, but at least in part. But if that row 5, for example, could be set up as a heading row so that as you scroll through the rest of the line items, row 5
Yeah.
remains static and you can see those codes. That's helpful.
Yep. Yep. We could definitely freeze that. Okay. The other thing that I thought would be helpful, and I'm a little bit surprised I didn't see it in the project list details either, was like a little safety information. So in other words, I know that there are accident and fatality information related to some of these sites. And maybe that's in some of the detail here. Let me just look here. Yeah, so I don't think they included that. So that was one thing that I was thinking would be helpful to know, right? So if there's been an accident or there's an accident history,
Would those get prioritized?
yeah, so I think either, so we were talking about this a little bit with the consultant, and what we were sort of debating about how we would present this information to people in the sense of we didn't want to kind of predetermine people's prioritization, but we did feel like it was important for them to know that there was accident history here or fatality, especially, so that that would automatically sort of become a priority, or at least we could talk about it with the group and kind of figure out and confirm that that was priority. So I think we've got to get that information into the mix. So, and then things like connectivity was one of the other themes, and connectivity, sustainability, I think, was another one. Those are the kinds of things we could have people rate maybe on a 1 to 5 basis. Like, yeah, it's, really helps with kind of like this first one when we said that it's going to potentially connect up with CV Link, like that would be a high connectivity rating. So anyway, so I think that's those other factors would come in to help weigh certain projects.
That definitely makes really good sense, both the fatality and also the connectivity. And, that first one is the sidewalk. And I would say also, what came to mind, like, are the sidewalk gaps like that, things like that are potentially injurious, that the city would get sued, or, I mean, I was just at Ruth Hardy Park the other day, and so I saw friends over there that they were doing a yoga class, and it was after the class. And so this woman says, look there, there's a hole in the grass, right? And so at first it was not a problem. And then Sylvie like backs up and she falls into it, and it's like, that's, we got to protect people so that the city's not getting sued.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Okay. Any other big things that would want to make sure that we include here? Trying to look at the details, see if there's anything else.
I assume that the comment period, as it were, is closed. You're not collecting any more comments on spots of concern.
Nope, we closed down the comment tools and we finished all the public meetings. So
okay.
Yep.
And then the second tab sort of piqued my curiosity in terms of the source and let's see, what was the column? Bear with me. Project.
I don't know what new means in this context.
Okay.
Let me just, maybe that means it doesn't appear in any plans. Yeah, I'll ask him.
Yeah, I guess my question is really the list in the spreadsheet does not include all of the city's projects, that things that have been identified previously. This is strictly a list of comments received in this project.
Right. So I think that's might be what new means, but then I'm not sure if that also means that, for example, like I'm not sure what it means for this particular project, for example. So we've got something, it says the source is public comments, but I don't see anything else here that would, I don't see any reference to an existing plan, so I don't know why that wouldn't just be considered new. And the source was public comment. So that's a question. I'm not sure. They need to clarify, I think, what those, what that really means.
Could it be, and I'm getting some of the projects mixed up. So I'm also on the general plan update steering committee, and we had an actual public meeting for that. We haven't had one for this exercise, have we? This is all online.
Right. So it's been all online. And then what we're planning to do is after the community advisory committee meeting where we get feedback from the CAC is to then our next step would be to have a public meeting. So it would be, I think it would still be virtual, but that would be a broader, a way to kind of vet some of those priorities and get some more feedback.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for seeking clarification on that distinction.
Yeah, because I'm not quite sure what it means to be new versus something that came from public comments. So.
Yeah, I was wondering maybe new came from the virtual tours or something. I don't know.
Maybe,
I guess you'll be finding
maybe.
out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was at the virtual walkout, but so is the next one, which is public comments. So, all right, I'll ask them about that. Clarify. All right.
And from a 30,000 foot elevation review of these items, it's a lot. So it's quite an endeavor. And it's really difficult to look at any specific project and say it might be more critical than the others. So I think that your addition of accident data is going to be very helpful, because that is ultimately probably a deciding factor. But when I do look at some of the comments, I think, well, that could actually be applied to other locations in the various districts too. So it seems like some of the comments rise to the surface, probably because of who made the comment and their particular experience in walking or cycling or however they achieve their mobility in any given area.
Right. Right. And so I think that's another, I'm not sure how to frame that, right? So it seems like it should get more weight if it's like a community or a neighborhood that's coming forward with this idea, or had several comments from several different sources that this was a problem versus just a one-off from one of the participants. So,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah,
Although sometimes people just don't make comments. And,
right.
one person may be speaking for multiple people without intending to, but de facto.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, I'm looking at District 3 in particular. It's got quite a few projects here. That might be a real challenge to get through. The other ones seem much more manageable in terms of having a conversation around them. So
that was my thought too. I was looking
yeah.
at District 1 and I thought, okay, I can digest that. District 2, I can digest that, thinking that District 3 might have about the same number of items, and it goes on for a while.
Right, right. Rock out, yeah. Yeah, and they're different things, so I guess they would be different projects. All right, well, I'll ask them about that and see what ideas they have with regard to this. How to have this conversation.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on how many people are there, quite honestly. So if we could do breakout groups, I think that will help a lot. So for example, if we maybe grouped 1 and 2, we have one group focused on District 3 and then maybe 4 and 5 or something like that. Maybe have a few breakout groups. And I wonder, yeah, I think that accident data is going to be really important. I'm also wondering if it might be helpful to, if any of these projects are connected, like they're either in a similar location, like it would maybe ultimately be part of one effort, or if they're linked somehow, like a light and a crosswalk, or a, I don't know, a sidewalk near a crosswalk, something like that, that I wonder if they could somehow indicate that. Maybe they have by the order. So I'll ask them that too, connection.
Yeah, and I realize this is essentially raw data in the spreadsheet, but I just keep thinking back to visualizing it would be really helpful. So just as you've been scrolling up and down the list there, and I see quite a few IC items in District 3, which are specific intersection pedestrian crossing improvements. Whereas some of the others are shown as complete streets, and that is a stretch. So it's a linear thing as opposed to a point thing.
Yeah.
That in a way would probably make it a little easier to manage as a committee and as the public look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Just kind of brainstorming here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll work with them a lot on the visualization piece. I think that's going to be really important because, again, if it, for example, here, we've got a lot on Ramon, we've got a lot on like Arenas and Alejo, maybe there's a couple, or Mata. Yeah. Palm Canyon, of course, is one. So I'm wondering if maybe again, maybe getting back to that connection, maybe there's an easier way to talk about them visually than in a list. Okay.
They have their work cut out for them.
They do. So any other thoughts, questions, comments on this?
Not at the moment. Not
Okay. All right. If you think of anything else, just let me know. I'm going to try to circle back with them and meet with them maybe tomorrow and talk it through because this isn't quite what I was expecting from them. So I just want to find out if this was like a draft they're sending me for comment or if they had some bigger plan for it. So,
okay.
Right.
Well, keep us posted.
All right, I will. And hopefully nobody's walking too much in this crazy heat. So,
Yeah.
because that is unsafe.
Thanks for joining us, Carly.
Yeah, Carlene, thanks for joining us. And let me know, Carlene, if you've got any other questions you need an update on.
Nope, looking good.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate your time. And I will see some of you tomorrow night at the Council Commission meeting.
Mhm.
So, all right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good
Bye.
rest of the
Bye.
day.
All right.